Good morning. Welcome to the Nut House. This truly is amazing why we call this Mr. Schizophrenic market. The enthusiasm on Monday to buy this market in stocks was certainly convincing, to say the least. In the letter I talked about, this being an outside day, kind of just crazy kind of price action is that, here was this bottoming tail bar after this move down into this gap fill area. And the next day on Friday, it gaps lower and heads down again to come all the way back above the high. And so the expectation going into today was one of which, this market is going to have to settle down. And I'm not so sure that today's gap down is part of that settling. But what I do know is historically, large moves do not happen from wide range bars like this type of a pattern where you get an outside day. Large moves happen after periods of some consolidation where prices, they tighten up a bit. So you can see this big wide bars up and then down. And the smaller candle bodies here, and even this one, this is where things start to compress and tighten up before a move happens. So, this morning we're gapping down as far as the spiders go near this prior low, right? 280, 285-ish. So down around the low of this bottoming tail bar. So we need to think, well, if buyers were so enthusiastic to buy it down here on Friday to drive it all the way back up above that high, well, how do they feel today? Are they going to step up here this morning on this gap down? Well, we're going to find out in a little while, of course. Just clear up these lines. So a couple of things come into play as far as the analysis goes as to this pattern. It's in the area of a prior low. So we know that there's always going to be buyers there. It's just technical analysis 101. There's buyers at support and there's sellers at resistance. Now, part of the problem with this is that, and the difference here is this was a move down and then it accelerates lower into the area of this low, right? Whereas, and then it rallied back up. So now all of those buyers from Friday are sitting there like, what the hell am I going to do? This is not supposed to do this. It's supposed to, if it's going to gap down, it's a small gap down. It rattles around and it tries to go higher, or maybe it goes sideways for a few days here as we look, our method up in the upper half of this bar. And then maybe it makes an attempt to go up. If it would have gapped up today and went higher, there would have been sellers would have showed up probably within the first half hour for sure. And then it probably got knocked back down. So now, what do we do? Well, I think primarily we sit on our hands to see if those, for these buyers, see if they want to show up here again. And we give it at a minimum of 5 minutes, maybe 20, 30 minutes. And we see how they step up here, rattle it around, and let it form a price pattern. Let me just go to a 5 minute on this for a second here and just see. We take a little closer view into the price action there. So you can see, you look over to the left where that prior low is, and buyers are beginning to step up here. Right? They're just giving it a shot. And part of trading is, we all look for patterns and unfilled gaps and, moving averages or whatever you look at. But bottom line is, it's in an area where buyers stepped up before. Oh my goodness. They stepped up there before, and they're just giving it a shot here. So let's see if when market opens that they can push it up here and where it goes from there. But if the market opens and it just rattles around here and say it forms a topping tail bar or a green bar ignored, a 180 reversal, well, then it's likely going to go down and test some area of support further below. So let's go back to the hourly chart. And we just take a look at where that would be. If we get a little bit more of a insight by, well, we can see over here, we got to go back real far. So let's go to a 180-minute chart for a second. And so we're right here in that unfilled gap. And what we see here is that essentially there's nothing. Right? There's basically nothing. I'm just going to put a line because I always look at it as an area. So let's just call it 280-ish, maybe as being the number where it falls down to. So we're trying to we're making a plan here as to where, if prices should continue to fall, where they're holding here doesn't hold, where it comes down into this area where we then start to look for, right? What do you look for when it gets down there? You look for something like this. So it becomes a replay. You find your reference area, then you look for price action that supports that reference area, is noticed, and buyers, at support begin to step up, and then what it does from there. So if it pops up here at the open and comes right back in again, maybe it goes down to 280, and then we start the process all over again. And ultimately that 200 MA, I highly doubt that's happening today, but that could ultimately be the target where the prices eventually fall to, which is going to be about a 6% correction, give or take. Looking at the Qs, right, similar situation. Let's go back to the hourly chart. Actually broken through support. We've got this unfilled gap here, 180 bucks. Right, we're close to it, 180.48. So again, know your reference areas. Right, just below there is where that close was, just below 180. It's gapping below a bottoming tail bar. Only one way to look at it is being bearish, but Mr. Schizo, right, buyers could step up again and turn it into this. Right, look at that. This was a big gap down there on that day. You remember that last week, big gap down and rally and gap down again. So bottoming tail bar, big gap down, could rally. Let's just see what happens here after 5 minutes or so. We know that we're getting a little base here that's been forming pre-market, right, for about an hour, actually. Right, it's been about an hour going sideways and hasn't been able to lift off. So a little bit of bearishness, meaning it's holding, but one of the ways to use moving averages as a visual aid, and that midday trade around 2 o'clock that I look for on the 5 minute, in where the two time frames come together, is that, well, something moved down, creates a void above, but its inability to rise from there, even after this retest, see the pivot low, the moving averages catches up, and then that afternoon trade gets to the downside, or the reverse if it's it's going up and the moving averages are down below. So as I'm looking at this, thinking, well, it's had an hour here trying to rally. It is pre-market, so they're waiting for the open, and we'll see what happens here. But if it doesn't pop up in the first, let's even say 15-20 minutes, it's probably going down. We'll see how it all unfolds. Russell, down near the prior low, so showing a little bit of relative strength, which it has, but it's gapping down near the bottom of these bottoming tail bars. So bearishness all over the place. This is still within a trading range that it's been in here for over a month, consolidating there. So not sure yet whether this is possibly a big M top where it's going a lot lower, or whether this is just Mr. Schizophrenic gyrations that are going on here that eventually works its way higher and goes up. Right? Presentation subscribe over the weekend. Thank you. Getting a nice comment there in YouTube about presentations, I guess, from the newsletters. And the transports don't show us much pre-market, but I'd imagine they're gapping down. The mid caps gapping down near the area of these prior lows where buyers have stepped up before. So, we're seeing similar patterns, right? We've got these wide range bottoming tail bars, which were all over the place, right? On Friday night and over the weekend, what we saw, which is suggestive of move up. But one of the things that saves us time and time again is some confirmation, meaning trade above a prior bar's high. So we could take positions on a bar like this. Ideally, I think I talked about this in the letter in the video, where a bar like this that is pulling back in an uptrend to minor support with rising moving averages versus a bar like this that's pulling back to relatively insignificant support and breaking down, completely different animal. Right. So not that it would suggest of a gap down like this. This is just the Mr. Schizophrenic market that we've been in. Anyway, let's move along here so Dan can get the gappers. And so looking at the futures, you can see what we have here. All right. So far, it's just an inside bar, inside the bottoming tail bar, we're in the area of the prior low. Can buyers turn this thing around and turn it green? And there's another thing that I talked about in the video in the weekend letter was, look, if this market could form a bar or two to the right of this bottoming tail bar, I'll be a lot more enthusiastic about being a buyer here than on this wide range bar, because big giant bars like this where the ranges expand typically result in some contraction of this wide range and volatility before the move really begins. So I don't know whether it'll stay within this range today or whether this chops around here sideways as I just talked about and then heads down to the area of this prior low. So remember, there's a whole lot of traders that are holding some losses. They're in pain that bought on Thursday and Friday thinking that that was it. And so they got some decisions to make in the first 5 to 30 minutes. Qs already down past the low into the gap fill. Right, we're down almost 6% from the high. The major support is about 7%. Really not a big deal in the long, big term picture. And ultimately, maybe the 200, step by step, down by the 200 would be about 8-9%. And big 7,200 level, what we got 73, right? Just lurking below here. So we'll see how that happens. And any daily correction, right, we put it in the context of a higher time frame. Meaning, if this was in a downtrend, odds are this would be going a lot lower versus this being in an uptrend and pulling back to where buyers want to get on board. So this is what we'll be doing step by step over the next several days to see if this continues to correct as it comes down here. When it comes down to this uptrend support on the weekly, we will then move back to the hourly to see if it begins to round out the bottom and then get a bottoming tail bar in this location, which then we look for the higher time frame to then begin to move up and the whole process begin to reverse back to the upside again. Already at the 200 MA, right? 5% down, give or take. So it's broken down through the low here. The Dow has been the weaker. I think the Boeing was down again. I guess a whole bunch is down in the Dow. I haven't gone through them all. And Tim is saying cryptos in rally. Bitcoin's up a whole bunch here today. If you're interested, just gapped up and got going over the weekend. And what else here? Okay. Dow is down at support. Bonds grinding higher. Yield curve concerns, China concerns, trade wars, killing the economy, yada, yada, yada. And okay, and gold finally finding some legs. Maybe no, just going there because the market is moving lower. We'll see. It's kind of a messy pattern. And right, oil, finding some buyers at support, which they were doing all of last week, and pull back into an area, relatively shallow pullback, I'll say. I would have ideally liked it pulling back a little bit more, but and the reason I say that is these kind of shallow pullbacks that are so close to the prior high, they have the danger of turning into an M top. So buying a pullback close to the prior high, you don't have that much room before you start hitting where the sellers are. And that's why it's not as desirable as one that pulls back a bit further. And even if it stalls up there, your reward to risk is much greater with the larger pullback. In any event, so a whole lot of sectors, right, as we went through the whole trend matrix in the ETF letter and spoke about in the video letters, so many daily charts look like, semiconductors, deep pullbacks where the weekly trends are still up. The daily trends either move to sideways, some actually moved down that had bigger corrections, right? Internet, not down, sideways. And these are the leaders, right? Technology, deeper pullback. So deeper pullbacks everywhere. So these bottoming tail bars, wide ranges like that with weekly uptrends. Right? I think it's better that we're actually opening lower like this from a longer term point of view versus a gap up. So I've always liked markets that tend to get the pain over quickly and pull back to support, bottom out, and then we could resume the bullish price action. So that's it for me. All yours, Dan. Lots of gappers here.
Yeah, good morning. But in terms of, gappers for looking for new opportunity, it's kind of irrelevant to me unless you found a tier one, because these gaps are going to be excessive. And then even if you do find one, timing it with the market, but like you said, I want to wait 15 minutes. They're bearish consolidation here at the low. So if I were a betting man, I think sentiment has changed from the day of last Monday's tweet gap down, because and I believed it too. I remember 10-minute high. I was thinking, yeah, they're going to have their negotiations in the background, and Trump's just doing his thing. But the sentiment I think today is, okay, this is real. China's not going to get bullied. They're firing back, and it's not going to be an easy fix. So my bet is that 30-minute low, we are going to, continue to go lower, but doesn't mean I'm going to do it. I need a pattern, of course. Now let's look at opens. And then instead of looking at gappers, I'm going to look at my big watch list from Friday afternoon. Golf Hotel. Golf Hotel, we have a covered call. Mitch, we're long stock. Now on some of these, I'll be watching them to leg into covered calls. Hey, LaDon, yeah, I just posted in via Telegram and in here. Now, yes, it's down, but our stop is under the low, so I'm less concerned about that one as I am Adobe. Adobe's in pain. Wow, it was 270 the last time I looked at it. It's a bearish gap. What can I say? It was it's a beautiful reversal on Friday. It's Greg and I were chatting pre-market. Swing trading. How do you? It's just we're in this gap Trump problem, and it's just a fact of swing trading. So we're going to give 30-minute low. LaDon is the answer. Let's see, MKC. I can't tell where it's opening, but that was a breakout, all time frames. TMUS. It's a bearish gap, but we're okay with it so far. And BA, gapping down like everything else. That was a breakout. Daily, weekly. Let's So we looked at now an Adobe in the final position, and the weekly is we have a half lot of the bear call credit spread in IYT. Let's look at some gappers now. Remember we had this little Bitcoin ETF as the core long. Wow. And it's just been on a tear the last 2 weeks. Boeing in the news again, plus the China, double whammy. Remember I said target 320 to 340. Yeah, Gustav, we can look at legging in, sure, into condors on anything. Same with legging into covered calls if you're long stock. TIVA in the news, some states are suing them for price fixing. AVP, Trader sent me this in one of his lists. I like the weekly monthly. It's actually a bear sandwich on the weekly, and it's bullish consolidation on the monthly. It's not, and I'm going to do the chart of the week on the 10 bagger setups, and there's 3 of them, and we'll go over them in a second. So this one's, I wouldn't call a 10 bagger because my target is, I don't know, somewhere 4.25, 450. But it's still worthy of a watch. And S, Chris, one of you sent this to me over the weekend, and I posted it in the Facebook group as being a beautiful retest on the monthly, daily, weekly. Let's see if that can set up as a 1, 2, 3. I like it. MKC, we're in. I have in the other screen, Triple M. We had as a Climo, it's gapping down. Nothing to do with it now. UNH, I had as a put spread over these highs, or actually over Friday's high. And if it triggers, it's still fine. I mean, you look at these patterns, and it's holding the bottom of this so far. So as long as it doesn't go, much deeper into this, it's still a valid trade if it hits. Charlie India, I'm just watching as a possible put spread, but it's gapping down, so probably no interest in that. Yeah, relative strength today. If the market does find a bid at the open and starts getting some confidence and taking out a 5, 10, 15-minute high, I'm going to be looking at the relative strength stocks, anything that is green. So I'll be pulling up telecharts and TC2000, and I'm just going to be looking for things that are gapping up or wide range bar. BRX, yeah, that's the one we just talked about. JFR, it's a buy setup, but it came in hard. We'll keep an eye on it. WPC, nah, no interest. JB Hunt was on Barron's as being a value play. It's gapping down $2. MCD. Now McDonald's, if it's a bullish consolidation, it's kind of a reverse head and shoulders in an uptrend on the weekly. If it can take out Friday's high, then yeah, then it's going higher. XLE, I was looking at this for a put spread, but there was no juice just for these multiple bottoming tails. XAR, same, but the spreads were just preposterous, like a dime by $1.80. XEL, I'm watching that on a pullback. Okay, this was one I called a 10 bagger. Daily, weekly, monthly. Look at that monthly. It's all the way back down to this support, had a little breakdown failure, and it has the possibility of a huge target. 20 bucks would be a 10 bagger. Zulu Sierra, nice wide range bar. I'm watching that for a 1, 2, 3. Sting, it didn't come in clean. SFY, this has been strong. Aflac, beautiful 1, 2, 3. I think Debbie might have mentioned this on Friday. That's strong. I can't tell where it's gapping. Nuon is a 1, 2, 3. Let's see where that opens up. TGNA, a 1, 2, 3. Whiskey, whiskey. This was another possible 10 bagger. Daily, weekly, monthly. Let's see what happens. November CR we talked about. Starbucks would have to be over Friday's high, and it's gapping. It's a deep one. I'm not going to even worry about it. MMC. This one's sloppier than Aflac. Same sector, right? I don't like the way that trades. JMIA has earnings this week. Mondelez, over the high. It's strong, daily, weekly, monthly. Maxer, this was the third one in my 10 bagger video. And I'd prefer a 1, 2, 3. All right, we're just gonna let things settle down here. But this was a short put over Friday's high. I'll just leave it for now. I gave it a limit, of course. Wow, look at these Uber and Lyft. Wow, those people are not happy. You know, they were promised us at 45 bucks a share. I'm sure they thought they were going to be selling at a premium. Fossil is a mess. We will trade Lyft, you know, eventually. When we get a setup, we'll sell put spreads on them. Pins is turning into a total mess. Oh, and Curliff. I have this a pot stock. We have this as a swing long in the letter. Has to break out over last week's high. Dow stocks, there's only one that's green, Verizon. And that's only by a few pennies. Adobe, yep, I have them in a window. We're giving them 30-minute lows, Michael. And now, the chart of now is better, obviously. I mentioned that pre-market. Oh, okay, good question. 280, 290. Let's time it with a bounce, and maybe it magically, you know, starts ripping up. But I like the idea. Let's just time it with watching both the stock and the broader markets. Yeah, let's look at our inventory to sell calls. A golf hotel we already did, Chris. But yeah, you can do it now, definitely. Definitely. All right, our BA. I'm gonna check it out. BA, there's the $60 calls. There's no even dollars. They're 50 by $1.20. So that it's just doesn't make sense.